Hello, welcome to Sitcom Geeks. I'm Dave Cohen,
And I'm James Carey.
and today we have decided, today and in fact next podcast, we've decided we're going to look at a list that's been kind of doing the rounds on social media, and it comes from, is it Emma Coates from Pixar?
Yes, that's right. She's Pixar storyboard artist, and actually, it's been doing the rounds. I mean, I've got a link here to it from, possibly 2012. So it's gone round
Okay.
and round and round. But we
Yeah,
just thought it would be useful to, what are Pixar getting right,
yeah.
and what can we learn from them?
Because really, I mean, nobody is getting it quite as right as Pixar is consistently, really.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, they probably have technically had a failure. There are one or two that haven't done amazingly, but overall,
Yeah,
they really have, knocked it out of
they
the
are.
park pretty much every time.
Yeah. So when Pixar say there are 22 rules that you should follow,
Yeah,
then there are 22 rules that you should follow.
yeah,
And one thing that I'm going to try and do to be a little bit topical, I've been watching the latest series of Friday Night Dinner, which is in fact series 6, I think now. So we're about 30 plus episodes in, written by one person, and it's still the most consistently funny show, I think, on
yeah.
terrestrial TV at this point. I'm not sure you're not crazy about it,
I
are
didn't
you?
go for it at the very start, and
Yeah,
then I thought, oh, I'll catch up with it. And it's a bit like Peep Show, where I watched the first series or two, and then for whatever reason didn't get back into it
same here.
because I like it very much. And I just thought, well, they'll probably stop after 4 series, and then I'll watch it. But
Yeah.
then they just kept making them and making them and making them. And I just thought, well, I'm never going to get. So now I've actually got. Now they finished making it. I should probably start watching it again. But I just, who's got time to do that? So, I mean, even with global lockdowns, I still don't have time to watch episodes of sitcoms that I should have watched by now.
Indeed,
So,
yes.
yes. So if you want to find this a list of rules, if you just Google 22 rules of storytelling according to Pixar, you will be presented with about 30 different options. And so we are going to talk about numbers 1 to 11, and with occasional references to Friday Night Dinner. And I will also fold in references to other shows. And also, Dave, you started watching The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, I believe.
That's correct, yes. Very exciting,
Yeah.
and very much enjoying that, and being able to educate my children about this particular time in the world in America I know a great deal about,
Yeah.
because it's about the early days of stand-up comedy. So they were very impressed when I was able to dig out one of my old Lenny Bruce books
Right.
and discover that actually Lenny Bruce was a real person, which
Right.
which
Okay.
is a reasonable thing to ask if you watch Mrs. Maisel, because
Yes.
all the characters there do seem to be kind of modelled on sort of real people. I
Yeah.
think there's
She's sort of Joan Rivers, but she's sort of not really, isn't she?
yeah, I think Joan Rivers is pretty much the nearest
Yeah.
parallel, but it isn't Joan Rivers. And then there's
Yeah.
also another character who's a bit like Phyllis Diller,
Right.
who was a sort of great character actor who played this sort of very, very kind of not homespun, sort of a loud, abrasive New York Jewish mother,
Yeah.
but was a sort of really posh woman.
Yeah.
You know?
And I love the idea. We'll get into this, the Pixar list in a moment, but I love the idea, Dave, that despite the fact that you've written dozens and dozens, hundreds possibly, of horrible history songs, your kids finally give you respect over the fact that you know a bit about Lenny Bruce. I love that.
Yeah, they kind of, I think they've sort of come around to horrible histories, because there are a few of their friends now who say, oh yeah, horrible histories, I like that song and I like that song.
Okay.
And then they come home and they say, oh, did you write that? Yeah, I wrote that. Okay.
So as their horizons get bigger, they start to see that actually horrible histories is a slightly bigger deal than they thought it was.
Yeah.
And that has a bit more traction, across the country. But anyway, there we go. So we should dive in, as they like to say on podcasts, or jump in, dive in.
Yep. Okay. Dig deep in.
Dig deep in. Oh wow.
Dig in deep.
Digging deep. Oh wow, that's a new one for me.
Yeah, people say about digging into the script, and all that stuff. So
number one, Dave, which I'm sure you've given much thought to. So number one on the list of Pixar storytelling rules is: you admire a character for trying more for trying more than for their
Yeah,
successes.
yeah.
I'm sorry, I'll read that again. You admire a character for trying more than for their successes.
You were correct. There should have been a comma after trying, definitely. Yeah, it's a great. I remember actually a friend of mine, a guy called Andy Linden, stand-up comedian, very funny guy. He's you would recognise him because he was a character in one of the Harry Potter movies. But he had this idea for a boxer. He never got around to making it. It's a shame. He said this boxer had 146 fights and he lost every one of them. each time he came back, and you sort of think, yeah, what an amazing heroic character.
Yeah.
And I think I mean, I think that's almost more of a kind of English thing than an American. Would you say? You know,
it's probably an American
loser.
audience need to hear that more than a British audience, because we love. I mean, it's a Bill Bailey quote, I think. I'm English and therefore I crave disappointment, I think was one of his early intro lines. And so, yeah, we don't have, so Eddie the Eagle is both a national treasure and then it's an easy no-brainer movie to make, isn't it? The life story of an extremely unsuccessful Winter Olympian.
Yeah, and actually, a thing that Jeff Norcott, the stand-up comedian, he put a thing on Twitter the other day, and he got into a sort of argument with somebody because he said, this kind of this idea that of kind of doing yourself down and disappointment is such a sort of English thing, and we shouldn't be like that. He was sort of arguing with someone who was saying it, and I said, well, actually, no, we're brilliant at it.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's the best thing about Britain is our crushing sense of disappointment.
Yes, failure. That's right. Our self-effacing. So, but also, I think it's having sympathy with the character and making sure that they are trying to succeed. You want to give them a reason to succeed and a reason for us to cheer them on, even if we don't really want the thing that they want. And for some reason, we're still on movies. The example I can think of, a great underdog movie in that nobody gave the movie a chance at the start, is 4 Weddings and a Funeral.
Yeah.
And if you're British, at least, you really don't want Hugh Grant to get together with Andy McDowell long term, do you? Because for a variety of reasons. She's not actually very nice, and we all want him to get together with Kristen Scott Thomas. But when he finally gets to marry her, Andy McDowell, and she accepts him in the rain and everything, we are at least pleased that that's what he wanted.
Yeah.
So we have to believe, we have to like the character enough for them to want what they want because they want it, not because we want it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And actually, as you were saying that, I was thinking of characters who are not likable at all as well, and admiring them for trying, and the idea of Basil Fawlty he sort of came to mind.
Yeah,
he is a monster. He's not really a nice person. He's not good at what he does. But you do get the sense that the thing that he wants, and he's going to fail of getting what he wants, but it's compelling to watch, and the key word there is you admire a character for trying rather than you like a character for trying. And I think we admire the kind of get knocked down and come back up again sort of Basil Fawlty approach, really.
Yeah. So I think that's, so if every story is the same story and is the kind of the hero's quest or whatever it is, then you do need to empathize with the quests, and that quest needs to make sense for them, for that character. So there needs to be, you need some hook into it, don't you, really? Which is, so if you're writing a sitcom and you're planning a new sitcom, you do just want to make sure, if it's about one person or 2 people, are we rooting for them? And that's different from liking them. And people say a lot about the difference between likability and empathy and that kind of stuff. Victor Meldrew's not really likable, but we do have sympathy for him. He is sort of defiant, but he's actually not. In actual fact, he's a perfectly nice man. It's just if you push
Mm.
him or push him to one side, he will go off.
And when he has a go at neighbours about or kids throwing rubbish on his garden,
Yeah.
we are at once mocking him and also admiring him for doing what we
Yeah.
daren't do because we're so sort of English and straight laced.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's good. Shall we move on to
We
number
should
two?
move on. Shall I read number 2?
Yep.
You got to keep in mind what's interesting to you as an audience, not what's fun to do as a writer. They can be very different.
That's yeah. I mean, that's an interesting one. I mean, it is that the way that's often expressed is the other version of that is you have to kill your babies. In other words, the things that you like about your script the most
Yeah.
are not necessarily the last things that you get rid of.
Yeah.
They aren't necessarily the best things for the script, but you are so attached to them that
Yeah.
you do have to get
I was
rid of
reading
that.
I was reading a book last night by a singer-songwriter and author actually called Andrew Peterson, and he's a Christian guy who lives in Tennessee and in Nashville. And he's written some kids' books actually that are absolutely fantastic that my kids really like, called the Wingfeather Saga. And they're sort of like fantasy kind of thing. But he was talking about songwriting in this book called Adorning the Dark, I think it's called. And he was saying when he was starting out, it's about the artist process to some extent. And he was saying that every producer, when a young songwriter comes to them with a song, it's always the same problem. It's always too long. And they always know that it's too long, but there's a special reason as to why their song needs to be longer than most other songs.
Yeah.
Now, if a song is 3 to 4 minutes, their songs are always 4, 5, 6, 7 minutes, but they always have a reason why they should be. And he says, he's gone back to songs where he really died on a hill for them to be longer and has replayed them later in live concerts and just thought, I have to cut that extra chorus and that extra bridge and that extra bit because this is just too long.
Well, if you look at look at the most successful writers, I mean, the mega successful writers, and the Harry Potter is a good example of that. The first Harry Potter book is, I don't know, 250 pages. It's a cracking read. It's a very quick read, and then it became a huge success, and then book 2 is maybe a little bit longer, and by the time book 2 comes out, J.K. Rowling is unassailable, and the most
certainly by book 4, because I think books 1 and 2 came out and did okay. Book 3, and then suddenly they might be movies. Book 4 is a real doorstopper, isn't it?
Reading it out to my kids, I really I became aware about halfway through book 3 that if there was an editor involved, they were no longer able to say, you couldn't just possibly cut this down a bit, could you?
Yeah.
And it was no.
Yeah.
It's what the kids want. And who am I to argue? I'm sure that book 7 sold as many as book 1, probably more. And but definitely without having the restraint of an editor saying this is too long, you need to cut it. Those Harry Potter books were easily the 4 and 5 and 6, I think I got as far as they're a good 200 pages too long. And we don't have that luxury because we can't say, you don't know, I know, I'm keeping it long. Well, they say, oh well, we're not making it.
There's always there's always a reason for it to be longer. There's always a reason as to why it needs to be different. And in a way, it's not for us to say there's never a reason for this or that. It's just a question of really checking yourself and do you really know better? Do you really do you and occasionally you get a game changer who just comes straight out of the gate and is just sort of doing stuff, but I think it's just worth bearing in mind.
That, I mean, I'm interested to think to ask you about this in terms of the process, because you've written so much more TV so many more TV sitcom episodes than I have. The difference between, so when you were writing Hut 33, and it's basically you and the producer,
Yeah.
and you kind of decide between you. But then it goes to telly, and it's not just about hearing voices; it's about seeing stuff and locations and buying props and all that stuff. And
Well,
how
at that point, the temptation, I think, the more complicated it is for TV, the more the arrogant writer in you potentially wants to make it less rather than more. And so it's as if going anywhere and doing anything is cheating, and you want to give yourself really tight rules to stick to. And then you want to write yourself into a corner and write yourself out of it again. And therefore you get bottle episodes, which I think, in a sitcom situation is like the characters are trapped in a lift. All of the normal things you can do to distract people are taken away. And now you need to really dig into your characters and write some amazing Pinterest, Samuel Beckett type stuff.
Right.
And actually they're not normally the best episodes. And I remember with Miranda, we tried to do Richard and I think maybe pitched series 1 a bottle episode, and even in series 2, and I think with the psychiatrist episode, which happens in real time, it was only very late in the day that Miranda was happy with that, because she basically just said, I know that you writers, as it were, like to be clever, but I just want to make people laugh. And you go, yeah, we're just trying to be clever, to be honest. And in the end, it is one of my favorite episodes.
It's one of my favorites.
Yeah, but maybe because you're a writer. But it's quite. But what I mean is, it can easily be vanity, and I think in the end, that episode is not vanity. But but they end up taking up more time writing wise than any other.
Right.
Even though that episode was really easy to film, because I think they filmed it in an hour. Right. It's like there weren't that many. There were some retakes, but that was sort of it. But it just feels like you just spend a lot of time on the script, and it's not immediately obvious that the audience liked it more. So I don't know. There's that FaceTime episode of Modern Family, isn't there? The whole episode's on FaceTime, and that is brilliant, and it is memorable. But but we like it as writers. But I don't know if it's people's favourite one.
Yeah, in fact, I remembered that I'd forgotten that I was going to talk about Friday Night Dinner. But just thinking about the fact that you can look at any episode of Friday Night Dinner and they are exactly the same. The only thing that changes is the model of car each year. So that's the only character change, is the car that the two boys turn up in. And so they turn up, and they turn up for Friday night dinner, and Mum is there and Dad is there, and Jim comes round with the dog, and things go wrong, and but they resolve at the end, and that's to week in, week out, and the temptation to kind of step away from that must be enormous, but it's absolutely rigidly stuck to,
because in a way that's a format which in another show might be a clever episode to do it all in one evening, because sitcoms tend to take place over the course of 24, 36, 48 hours. But he might be tempted to do an episode. There's an episode of Seinfeld very late on, maybe series 8 or 9. I think Mike McShane is in it. The whole episode starts at a wedding in India, and it just goes backwards. And it's sort of explaining how the heck did they get to this wedding in India.
Right. I so vaguely remember that.
By the time you're on episode 168 or whatever it is, you've probably earned the right to do that. And I think series 9 in particular was very, very inventive. But also Larry David wasn't doing the last series, and I suspect he was like,
didn't he
was the one who wanted.
Didn't he stop doing like series 7 and 8 or something and come back for the last series, or he came back for the end?
I think he just came back for the last episodes or something.
Oh right, okay.
But so there's an episode where it ends up where George is playing like playing Frogger, trying to get something across, a highway.
Right.
And so it becomes very tricksy. But as I say, once you've done 160 of something, you probably have exhausted it, and you do need to be a bit clever.
Yeah,
but don't start there. I don't think. Would be my would be my thing. Should we move on to the third one?
Number 3. Okay. Trying for theme is important, but you won't see what the story is actually about till you're at the end of it. Now rewrite. Now that's very interesting because just before we started this podcast, I had a thought about our sitcom that we're trying to write. And I've been spending a lot of time, and we both have really kind of thinking about the theme and what's it about. And a couple of weeks ago, a friend of ours who we showed it to said, you know, the best sitcoms have the simplest themes, and possibly what you've got is a bit of a kind of difficult theme to sell. And actually, so I just thought of something that kind of keeps it as it is, but has a much simpler, but imposes a kind of simpler story on it, and that out of which the themes may come. I think that's not a bad point. I
just to say before we move off of that. So if you want to hear lots of episodes of that, it's called Sitcom Soup to Nuts. And there are at least 14 episodes of Dave and I talking about it, maybe 15 by now.
Yeah.
But just basically walking you through how you create a show, and just these are the lengths we go to think about it from all angles and all this sort of thing. But what this point is saying, it's interesting, isn't it? That even after you've written the first draft, you're still discovering what it's really about. And I think, and so what the temptation therefore is to rush to write a draft to get to that next stage. But you're essentially always tricking yourself that you have cracked what the show's really about at every stage. So with the outline, you're trying to absolutely nail it. So that the script is just, I've cracked it. And then you write the first draft, and then you realize you hadn't nailed it, but now you've nailed it. And then you read it back, and then you realize you hadn't nailed it with the first draft. And then you go back and you rewrite it again.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a hard one because I think, you know, I've spent a lot of time in the last year, and it's partly through all these scripts that we read for our competition. And recently I've been reading a lot of scripts for the BBC Writers' Room, and separating out what is the theme of your sitcom and what is happening in this episode. It's a common mistake, and all writers make it, even, you know, very successful writers, of the episode 1 is the theme. There isn't actually a story, and it's kind of I sort of feel like I have an idea what the theme is when I'm starting out, that I don't necessarily have the actual it's not nailed, but it's kind of, well, it feels like it's sort of about a fish out of water, or it's about would you call that a theme?
Well, I think this overlaps actually with with number 4 actually on our list.
Okay.
And so and the reason I say that is because I think we're so used to movies, and lots of people now writing sitcoms are the sorts of people that used to watch a lot of movies as well as sitcoms. And in a movie, you don't need an episode. You just need a theme that we then see expressed with a beginning, a middle, and an end, and it's done. So let me just read. Number 4 on the Pixar list is Once Upon a Time There Was a Blank, Every Day Blank. That's your act 1, basically. One day blank. Because
inciting
of that,
incident at the end of act 2. Act 1,
one day blank. Because of that blank. Because of that blank. Until finally blank. So what that's giving you is it's also making sure that your story is not a series of events, this and then this and then this, but this and therefore this and therefore this and therefore this. And so I think it feels like if you write your first episode that you've written an episode, but actually you've written the story, and maybe you've even written a very short movie that may be even slightly underwhelming in some ways. And there were 1 or 2 scripts that we've read where I just thought, you know, and actually good scripts, where I just thought, I don't know what the next episode of this would be, because it feels like this show is about a character's quest to do this, and we've seen it with a beginning and a middle and an end, and I don't know what another version of this quest is going to look like. But that may be a lack of imagination on my part, and we were just, and it wasn't obvious, and that's fine. But
But I think also part of that is down to the fact that we get so many shows that are led by writer performers that they very rarely get beyond two series, and they have a very successful first series, and then the writer performer feels, well, I've done that, I can't take it any further, and so they
Yeah,
stretch it to a second series, which even then maybe is stretching it, but then they that's it, and so
yeah,
like Fleabag or The Office or Home,
yeah,
these series have they are more like self-contained stories than sitcom.
yeah,
They have resolution, and in fact, I mean, that's the point about this Pixar thing. It is about movies, but I mean, we can apply it. But yeah, that where it's a until finally dot dot dot.
yeah.
But of course, in a sitcom, finally doesn't happen.
Yes,
It goes every day X happens, one day something else happens. Because of that, the character does something and it all goes horribly wrong or horribly right. And then because of that, it goes even worse or even better.
yeah,
Then the difference with sitcom is, and then it all falls apart and ends up back
yeah,
where it was at the beginning.
yeah.
And,
And
so
again,
that's
people are writing movie scripts in the sense of we just keep finding. So now sometimes we're getting scripts, we read scripts where something happens on page 10, which starts the story. But again, that's probably fine if you're showing once upon a time there was an everyday this. You've got 10 pages because you've got 10 minutes because people have paid 10 quid to actually go and watch your movie, and they're not going to walk out after 10 minutes going, well, this
no,
is boring. You're establishing a world before the hero has their quest and leaves it. In a sitcom, you've got 28 minutes, maybe 24 or 22, depending on whether you're on NBC or whatever. And so you really need that. You've got your once upon a time and every day. That's your opening title sequence, your title, and your first 10 seconds. It's your by page 2, by page 3, you need the one day this, and because of
yeah,
that. So by the time you get to page 10, you're already on the sort of the second act, third act within your, the whole thing is a giant act 2 anyway. But
yeah,
so I think people again are using movie grammar or very slow moving TV drama grammar. With this lockdown, I thought I might finally get around to watching The Wire, which I've got series 1 on DVD and I still have a
right.
DVD player. And I remember somebody just saying, oh yeah, in the first 4 episodes, nothing much really happens. And I don't know whether that's true or not, but you just think, wow, that's 4 hours of just sort of fiddling around, building a world. Apparently that's fine.
Yeah.
It is in drama, apparently. It's really not in comedy, I don't think.
No, I agree. I mean, I did watch the whole of The Wire. You need very good subtitles to watch it. There's a lot of muttering in darkness goes on.
I'm not too proud to use subtitles.
No, well, I use them all the time, but that's partly because I'm a deaf git.
Okay, well, I'm not, and I can't understand people half the time.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
including my younger daughter, I keep having to tell her, "Speak clearly, speak." I just thought, oh, this is what my
Yeah.
mum used to say to me.
Okay, well, we'll go to number 5.
Yeah,
So it says simplify, full stop. Focus, full stop. Combine characters, full stop. Hop over detours, full stop. You'll feel like you're losing valuable stuff, but it sets you free. Friday night dinner, if I may, come to
please do.
simplify, focus, combine characters, hop over detours. Yeah, I mean, they have the same characters every week, and they're the same recurring characters. I know there's a show on tonight, and Horrible Grandma is appearing in tonight's episode,
Right.
and I know exactly what's going to happen because I've seen Horrible Grandma in one episode of every series so
Right.
far, so I know exactly what to expect. Last week, Auntie Val was in, and Auntie Val is in one episode a series or 2 sometimes, and I know exactly what's going to happen with her. So that's all. It's all good stuff about simplifying. You really you just strip everything away. And this thing about extra characters. I mean, it really is, and I know I do it as well. You think you've got a different character for each. You think each this character, oh, I definitely need that character because that character's going to say this and say that, which is probably true in your head. But
Yeah.
someone else says, actually, why don't you just get rid of that character and give that stuff to one of the other people you've already got?
Yeah. Especially if that
What?
character's not working,
Yeah.
then give the plot stuff to the character that is working.
Yeah. And
If you
how do you
can.
know if a character is working or not? You'll be excited by them. You'll want to write stuff
Yeah.
for them. You'll want to get in, and that's kind of how you find these things.
Yeah.
And
I mean, in a way, this feels like simplify, focus, combine characters, hop over detours. I would flip that on its head as a sitcom writer and just say, hop over log jams. Or if there's a scene, by the time you're getting to write a scene, your outline is fine and you're happy with it. You get to a scene and you go, I don't know how to write this scene. Well, give it 10 minutes and then have a cup of tea, give it another 10 minutes, make a start typing, see what happens. If after an hour, nothing's happening, you've possibly not set the scene up right, then think to yourself, well, what happens if I don't have this scene? If I just cut this scene, then I start the next scene with the scene not having happened. Does that change anything? It may be that doesn't change anything, in which case there was no point to that scene, which is why it's so hard to write. Or he or she could come into the next scene, and we've not seen the last scene. We've just heard about it. They've just said, well, that was a disaster. This happened, then this, and the next thing I know, blah, 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 and here I am. It's a bit you want to show rather than tell. But actually maybe the telling might be funnier. Simplifying is often a good way of getting rid of plot problem by just not doing them. Is that cheating?
Yeah. I mean, I think also always think of that scene in Raiders of the Lost Ark with the guy with the whip, and it's going to.
Oh, was it in the sword? The sword guy, wasn't it?
And Harrison Ford with his whip, and he just sod it, and gets the gun out and shoots him.
Yeah,
which feels like a sort of seminal moment in American comedy. Really, it's a sort of it's become a kind of way of doing a joke. I've seen like a million versions of that since then, really.
I believe that I heard that it was choreographed. There was this amazing fight scene that was choreographed.
And Harrison Ford was really ill on the day or something.
Something like that. I just said, can I just shoot him? They just thought, that'd be really funny. So yeah, he's taken his jacket off now. I can see on our Zoom recording that Dave is jacket
really
off.
digging in now, digging into business.
Yes. So we might not even make it to number 11. Let's keep going. Number 6. What is your character good at and comfortable with? Throw the polar bear. Throw the polar opposite at them. Challenge them. How do they deal?
Okay. That's the cliche we've heard many times. Take your character, chase them up a tree, probably a polar bear chasing them up a tree.
Absolutely, yeah, why not?
Yeah, throw stones at them, and then that's act 1, chase them up a tree. Act 2, throw stones at them. Act 3, let them come down again.
Yeah.
So that's.
But I, as you know, I have a twist on that one.
Yeah, so they allow them to go up there, isn't it?
Yeah, give them a reason to go up a tree, and then give them a reason to cut off the branch that they're sitting on. You know what I mean? It's just like So a polar bear is fine, but anyone would run from a polar bear. Why is your character running up a tree?
Yeah,
you want to really push your characters into a difficult situation that it's like, oh, I forgot to pay my tax bill. Well, anyone could forget, or there's been a problem. My car has been crushed by a meteor.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I've not seen that before, but equally that could have happened to anyone. So it would be better if you have something that's more specific. So I think it's good advice, but I don't think it's the best advice.
No, but I think it is definitely also, the thing that I do with the thesaurus, where you define your character and you say, well, my character is pompous, say, and then you look at all the words that are like pompous, and that gives you clues of things that how other people can see them, or how they see themselves. They are pompous, but they see themselves as important or whatever. So that gives you clues of sort of do things that challenge their perceptions of themselves, I
Yeah.
suppose.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go to number 7. Yeah, come up with your ending before you figure out your middle. Seriously, endings are hard. Get yours working up front. What do you have to say about that then, James?
I think that's excellent advice. I mean, even in terms of plotting, it's easy to try and go, okay, this week what happens? Well, this happens, or they try to do this. And then you go, then what? Then what? Then what? Oh, that's funny. It doesn't feel like an ending. How do we
Yeah.
top it? How do we top it? If you can, I think it is a good way to go, okay, how does it start and how does it end? Or even what's a great middle, and how do we get from, that's the Graham Linehan thing, which is why, some of the plots are quite lumpy, but they're funny, is they go from, wouldn't it be funny if this, and then this, and then this? Well, yes, it would. You're going to have to work quite hard to get there, but that's all right.
Yeah.
But ideally, so the novel I'm writing at the moment, which looks further away than ever in some ways, because I'm learning that murder mysteries, or it's not a murder mystery, but they're actually an awful lot harder to do than one would think. I do know how it ends. I do know where the treasure is, and I'm really happy with it.
Yeah.
And I'd be quite surprised if I thought of a better ending.
Right.
So in a way, all of the planning that's going up to there, I feel optimistic about, because I do have an ending. But I have also plotted sitcom episodes where you just think, is that funny? Is that funny? Is that bigger? Is that better? So I think when you are plotting stuff, if you can get to the ending first and then not worry too much about the middle.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you think?
I mean, one of the clues that you have to your ending is that, or some of the clues you already have to your ending is the person is back where they started. Whatever has happened, whatever they go through, they are back. They're back. They're back where they were. So, in a sense, you've already got. And again, they're not. Pixar aren't making sitcoms; they're making movies where people grow and something happens, and we know, and that's where the treasure was buried.
Yeah.
Or,
but being a movie, in the last third, absolutely everything was there all along. You know what I mean? So that the plotting. I mean, Toy Story 2 is, for me, the perfect movie. There is not a single frame that is out of whack. The whole thing is absolutely perfect. But with every Pixar movie, pretty much, the answer was there all along, and it was there in Act 1, and it was there in Act 2, and it's been unlocked. And so, having said that, one of the best movie endings is Casablanca, and they came up with that pretty much on the day. So there are more than one way to skin a cat, but you are trusting your luck if you're going to leave the ending till quite late.
I think it's true. Once you do really know what your end is going to be, and then when you do start writing, and it does become easier to plant those things that you know that the audience won't see what these are planting, but you know that they are actually these are things that we're going to come back to, and we'll find right, okay.
And quite often you do come up with, even if you know your ending, you do often come up with a better one. But if you go in without knowing one, then you're making your life quite hard. But again, it depends on whether we're talking about coming up with outlines or coming up with scripts. I wouldn't dream of writing a script unless I had all the scenes planned out and I knew how each scene was going to begin and end almost.
I mean, I had my ending for my novel. And then I started writing it, and I realised that actually that the novel, it's too long. If I'm going to have that ending, I'm going to have to completely rethink everything, or it's 2 novels. So I pretty much kind of 3/4 of the way through writing it, I thought, the point that I'm getting, I thought this is going to be 200,000 words if I carry on at this rate.
That's too long.
So in the end, it was about 110,000, and I've got it down now to about 85.
Oh, okay. That's a lot of cutting, though, isn't it? That's painful.
But I mean, I know now I've started to work on the second one, and I can see how. And the ending is definitely. I really have the ending now. I've had it. I've had it once before, and I've still got it.
Yeah,
So
yeah. I mean, I've got an
um,
ending for there's a kids fantasy sort of thing, a bit like the Wingfeather saga I mentioned, or Narnia or whatever.
yeah,
I've got a brilliant ending. I've got a brilliant beginning, and I've got a brilliant ending. And I know that if somebody actually said, right, write that story, here's 6 months and a pile of money and all the coffee you can drink, I know how to write that movie because I know how it ends.
yeah,
But you know, no one's offered to do that. But so I do understand the power of an ending and how much confidence that gives you going in.
yeah, yeah.
So I, in the same way, actually, you would say when we talk about writing sketches, the problem is always the punchline, isn't it? Coming up with a decent punchline for a sketch is so hard. You would almost advise someone not even to bother start writing the sketch until they've got the punchline.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
a string of jokes is not quite enough and won't make your sketch stand out amongst all the other ones. And a sketch with a proper punchline on it really will get a lot further, won't it?
Yeah, and it's quite rare, isn't it, as well? Even when you're listening
Yeah.
to watching great shows.
Yeah.
I mean, John Finnemore is a rare example of
Yeah.
someone who most of his sketches have a very funny punchline.
Yeah.
And even he sometimes,
Yeah. Yeah.
in a
Yeah.
half-hour episode.
Yeah. Maybe a third of the time, the punchline is like, I think you just ended on your best joke. That isn't technically a punchline. And then there might be a chat about it afterwards. The Pin have got a brilliant cheat on that, where after a sketch, they have a thing that sounds like an ending, and then occasionally they'll talk about the sketch as if it was real.
Yeah.
And they sort of just go, wow, I can't believe that guy in that sketch did that. I mean, what? Wow, he's had a terrible day, hasn't he? Yeah, I know. It's just a real sad indictment. And it's just like, why are you talking about it as if it's real? It was you, But
if you can, they've made. I've seen a couple of them. I'm sure they've made more now. They've making some lockdown sketches.
okay.
I've seen a couple very, very funny.
Oh, I bet they will. I've not seen those. I'm a very big fan of their
the particular one.
Yeah, great. I look forward to that.
Yeah.
So.
Right.
Come up with your ending was number 7. Number 8 is finish your story. Let go even if it's not perfect. In an ideal world, you would have both, but move on. Do better next time. Wow.
Right.
I don't think John Lasseter's going to settle for that, is he?
Is that does that mean press send basically? But I'm not sure if it means just get to the end of your first draft, and it's sort of that sort of information. That's that sort of thing. But actually, that means do as much as you can. I mean, it's true that no script is ever perfect, and you can always improve a script,
except for Toy Story 2.
Yeah. Right.
Sorry, I will die on a hill for Toy Story 2. I think it might be the best movie ever made.
I have to watch it. I've not seen 2, so I've only seen as far as Toy Story 1. So I need to catch up. I'm behind on my Toy Stories. I think it's
got the voice of Kelsey Grammer, Dave. It's got Frasier in it. And there we go. I don't know how far into the sitcom we are, but we've just mentioned Frasier. For those of you playing
not me,
Sitcom Geeks Bingo. Yes. He's not even going to say the word.
No. Okay.
But if we just move on to the next one, maybe this will help. Number 9 is when you're stuck, make a list of what wouldn't happen next. Lots of times the material to get you unstuck will show up. That's really good advice, isn't it, for plotting? What wouldn't happen next?
Yeah.
And then you might go, well, actually, maybe it would.
Yeah. You're kind of kidding yourself. You're sort of cheating yourself a bit. And again, this is something I've been seeing quite a lot of in the last week or so. Someone has a really good plot twist, and in fact, it's so good that it's the last scene in the script, and actually. There was one script that I just read recently, and I went and I got to the end, and I just went, "Wow! I did not see that coming at all. That is brilliant." And I thought, okay, so this person either has to has to build the whole thing to get to that point. Or I thought, actually, this isn't the end. This is a brilliant twist. And now that brilliant twist has happened, there are more things that can happen as a result of that. So, I mean, I don't know. It's sort of you could go either way with that. But I think, you know, when you think you've got a great idea and you have a brilliant twist to a plot, then you do sort of need to have another one, really, don't you? It's like having one thing is not enough.
No.
And I think possibly what I'm saying here is slightly different from what's meant here, but I do read too many scripts where there's only one or two things happen, and you need more things to happen than that. So
quite often. I mean, out of the 65 or so scripts we read for the British Comedy Guide competition, most stories didn't start till page 10, and most stories had basically run out of steam by page 25.
Yeah,
and yet the script still went on for another 10 pages. So I think story is something that people find a lot harder than we might think. And I think people need to story for much longer before they start writing, because it is painful to fix it when you've written jokes that you really like. So I would always urge people to absolutely kick their story to death before they start writing it, because it's just it's so annoying to get 15 pages into writing a script and realize it doesn't work and have to start again. I mean, it's better than writing 40 pages and realizing it doesn't work. But that's why I think, you know, any trick that might work to kind of get you got your car stuck in the mud and you just want to stop rocking it backwards and forwards to see anything that gets traction to get it out of the ditch. So what wouldn't happen next? Sure, try that. Why not?
Yeah, and I think, and it also makes you think about your character. Well, my character would never do this because, and actually, then you come back to thinking, well, what if they would do that? What, you know, what if in this point they are acting against type? And you know, you are able to do that with people, because people do occasionally act against type, but it might, you know, thinking of story and character as separate things is you kind of have to do it when you're planning, otherwise your brain explodes. But when you're really sort of dug in there, if you don't mind me saying, right in the dug into your script, and you know, you've got to find some sort of combination of story and character that's that works.
And actually, the Robert McKee story is character. You go, well, yeah, I guess so, but I wonder retrospectively how good advice that actually is. I think for movies that probably is good advice, because they say you're not trying to come up with multiple stories. You only need one story if you're a character. But then, so number 10, we're just going to wrap up the last two. I think this is referring to other people's stories. Pull apart the stories you like, and then this is classic Pixar. What do you like in them is a part of you. You've got to recognize it before you can use it. I don't really know. I'm British, and I went to a fee-paying school, and I'm male. I am very unlikely to be able to process something that's been written by a lady who probably lives in California and works for Pixar and is a storyboard artist.
I, on the other hand, I'm a sort of third generation immigrant, and you know, I come from a religion that survives on questioning everything around, and you know, I'm a bit of a wishy-washy liberal type, and you know, I think the things that you love, they are a part of you, and you know, you can.
I thought you were setting yourself up for a joke there, and to say, and I don't understand what it means either. That's where I thought you were going with it.
Yeah, I could have done actually, but
but you went for the heart, because, you know.
Yeah.
You're the songwriter.
and I made that particular thought last minutes longer than it should have done as well. So,
well, no, I think it's a helpful note, and I think we go back to an episode, or at least I mention it and remember it quite a lot. An episode with Carrie Quinlan that we did, where we said where the episode's, I think, called "What Kind of Writer Are You?" And I think knowing what kind of stories you like and what you like, the stories you like telling are probably the stories you like watching. And it is worth thinking, you know, what are your favorite sitcoms? What are your favorite movies? What do you like about them? Because in a way, probably what you're trying to do is write them.
Yeah.
And so it probably is worth kicking the tires on those things and just going, why do I like them? And take them apart. So I think there is, why do I connect with them? I think there is something in that.
Yeah, I think, and I think I've mentioned this before, but one way in which Richard Curtis sort of zoomed up in my estimation, I went to see him give a talk. It's a few years after Notting Hill had been out, and he said that, you know, they were sitting in the editing suite at Notting Hill. He'd written it, they'd made it, it'd been directed. It was, it was years down the line, that project, and it was coming near to the sort of final edit, and he thought, oh my God, I've just made exactly the same film as Four Weddings and a Funeral. and then I thought about that, and I thought, actually, and isn't the tall guy also kind of a little bit like that? They're, the kind of posh English person and the cool American, except the genders are different. But and so there's obviously some very deep, at some very deep level. And I think it's the kind of immigrant thing as well with Richard Curtis, the kind of wanting to belong, kind of what's the ultimate place that you can belong to, if you're as an English, how does an English person keep their identity and be, kind of still manage to be a person of the world, so maybe that's...
Well, it's interesting because there's 12 episodes of a podcast I did called The Inquisition, which is about talking to Christian people, and
not about Monty Python then.
No, one of my last questions on that is always essentially, some vicars say that every sermon is basically the same, that every vicar has one sermon and they sort of say the same thing and they apply it to virtually everything. It doesn't really matter what the Bible says or what part of the liturgical calendar it is. They kind of, and I think almost everybody I've interviewed has just sort of said, yeah, there's probably a lot of truth in that. And the bit where my friends or whatever tend to roll their eyes is when I say, you know what, I think this, and they're like, yeah, we know. So it is worth knowing thyself, isn't it? And therefore knowing the themes that really matter to you and to write to them. Because I think, we're talking to the BBC Writers' Room, they want to hear voices, and the deadline for that is probably passed by the time this goes out. But overall, people want to read scripts where, the person telling the story just feels passionately about that story, and that does become obvious. So you do need to pick themes and kinds of story, as well as precincts that you might know about, or situations or expertise or relationships or whatever that you understand. You do need to address themes that you care about. So I think that is really insightful. Yeah. And then we just got time for the number 11.
We have, yes. I might turn my video off at some point because my internet connection might be getting a little bit dodgy.
Okay.
So you might lose my picture in a second.
Okay.
Yep. But we're up to number 11. Yeah. So putting it on paper lets you start fixing it. If it stays in your head, a perfect idea, you'll never share it with anyone. I think that's a very good point. I think a lot of people are scared of writing or of telling the idea. A lot of people, when they're starting out, I'm scared to tell you my idea because you'll nick it or someone else will do it, and it's such a great idea. I mean,
I think if I may stereotype, it may be that men might think my idea is so brilliant you'll nick it, and women might be more tempted to think you might just think it's crap. I don't know whether, send us an email, sitcomgeeks@gmail.com, if that is a sexist generalization. But I suspect, given the number of male and female writers that I know and how they talk about their craft, that there is something in it.
Definitely, yeah.
But yeah, so I think I write stuff down. Partly the very act of writing it down, if I've had an idea, means I don't have to look at it again because I've remembered it.
Yeah.
But I do have, and I have Apple Notes, the yellow notes thing. I just have tons and tons of those where I just put in random ideas.
I do have a notebook and I write in it all the time, and I write in it at least once a month because I
once a month, once a week, surely.
Well, I should do. I mean, I do a once monthly kind of review of the previous month and looking to what I'm going to do next month. But in between times, things go in there.
Okay.
ideas and whatever. And I do go back and read them and think, oh right, yeah. And I had completely forgotten that I had that idea. So it is worth doing it. Get the stuff down there, and go back and look at it. And
for example, this murder mystery idea that I've been working on today, I remember having the idea several years ago. And actually, the show that I'm trying to get it on is a really good vehicle for it. It's absolutely perfect for it, and I'm really excited. But it probably wouldn't have worked in other formats or for other things. So I just wrote it down and thought about it a bit, and that was it. And then I was reminded of it when I was pitching, actually by my daughter said something that just triggered. Oh, I did have an idea about related to this, and it's this, and I should totally pitch that. That's a brilliant idea. And I just spent. Literally, I was up at 6:30 this morning, just sort of finishing it off.
And I hope she's going to get a big chunk of the commission if you get it made.
I think my daughter's going to do fine out of me over the course of her life.
Right. Excellent.
That brand new bike didn't pay for itself, let me tell you. And it was one of those nice Isla bikes as well, I can tell you.
Oh, can't go wrong with an Isla bike.
No, and they retain their value as well, so you can sell them second
hand. They do, yeah, because they grow out of them, but then, off they go.
Yeah, how do we get onto that? So that is numbers 1 to 11. And next time we will talk about rules 12 to 22. That was fun, wasn't it?
Yep. Okay.
Thanks very much for listening, everybody. People can contact us, sitcomgeeks@gmail.com. We're on Facebook. We're on Twitter. Your website, Dave, is...
davecohen.org.uk. I was in the process of getting a brand new website, and that bloody virus thing or something came along, and now it's on hold. But it will be happening. And also, I work for the Writers Guild, the Comedy Committee. If you've got any sort of problems or issues that have come as a result of the virus or whatever, I'm on Twitter, Dave Cohen Comedy. My direct messages are open. If you've got anything you want to discuss in confidence with me, you can find me there.
Brilliant. Cool. And then also we're on Patreon. So also, if you have writing-based things, if you join us on Patreon for as little as $1 a month or something, then there is a private Facebook group, and people just put stuff on there and they ask questions about stuff, and Dave and I look at that Facebook group pretty much every day, and the Patreon page as well, and we're putting up content. There is hours and hours of extra audio to help you while away these times of lockdown. Although people are listening to to podcasts less, and I think it's because it's quite a solitary activity, and we tend to be with people, and you can't just sit and ignore people and listen to podcasts.
But we're going through it. We're carrying on. We're soldiering on.
Yes, indeed. Great. Okay. Well,
thank you for listening, everybody.
Cheerio.
Thank you. Bye.